The Florida Panthers defeat the Buffalo Sabres with a stingy defensive effort and get the second win of this 3-game homestand.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, February 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. And man, Florida Panthers fans, do we have a big episode for you today as the Florida Panthers defeat the Buffalo Sabres at home by a final score of 3-2 in overtime. Another regulation win for the Cats, this time coming on home ice. But it is a Wednesday, which means it is a Winans Wednesday edition of the show, which means Jacob Winans is back here. And Jacob, welcome back for another Victory Wednesday, my friend.
Man, we are on a roll right now. I think this is three in a row. 3 in a row for us on our Wednesdays. Another close game. The Panthers seem very comfortable in those. Another 1-goal game. Another game where they hold the opposition to under 2 goals. I mean, this looks like a team that knows how to play playoff hockey, and they seem ready. Again, similar to the Ottawa game that we discussed last time around. It's a team that has playoff type talent on it in Buffalo. They're having a disappointing year in the standings, but they've got some playoff talent on that team, and not an easy task at all. That's a good team over there, and the Panthers handled it the way they've handled a lot of those type of opponents. Shutdown defense, timely goals. They're hitting their groove right now.
Yeah, and you think about how the Panthers how overwhelming they were when it came to matching speed, because I mean, you think about what the Buffalo Sabres are all about. It's a speed team, run and gun and all. Even though the goals are down from last year, they were like 4.15 and now they're down to 2.9. Obviously, injuries has a lot to do with that from this season, and maybe failed expectations as well. But also for the Panthers, they were frustrating someone like Tage Thompson on the night, who ended up getting a lot of shots on net, didn't score until his 7th shot on goal on the night. But even before that, I mean, the Panthers, I mean, they went to the box quite a few times on the night, but they gave up a power play goal to the Buffalo Sabres, the first one of the game, where Dylan Cousins scores on the on a one-timer from up high. But also the fact that Bobrovsky kept the Panthers in this one. There was one board battle a little later that Cousins had was fed on a one-timer by Middlestat, and Bobrovsky was really up in his crease as well. So we saw a lot of those as far as the quality chances that Buffalo got, as far as the eye test shows, to really keep the Panthers in this game as far as being up on top of the crease. And then even before the Panthers scored, the Buffalo Sabres were kind of better with the puck possession at that point. And I mean, man, what a way to score the first 2 goals for the Panthers. I mean, Montour's driving towards the net, get to on a give and go to Nick Cousins, and then as Kevin Weeks said, drove past Sawgrass undetected and then scores on the past the glove, and then Matthew Tkachuk on the power play, which was like trying to feed back door, but it was an oopsie, bouncing off the stick of Eric Johnson and back into the net as well. But I mean, you think about the second period as well for the Panthers. I mean, Erod starts getting up in on the offense as well, getting in front. The next power play in the second period, Rhino gets a few redirections. Barkov is right there on the doorstep. UPL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he was also a story of this one for this game, even in a losing effort for the Buffalo Sabres. We spoke about how he started the last five. Buffalo was on a 3-game winning streak coming into this one, their longest of the season, and Panthers found a way to yet match an opponent's desperation as well. So it was not an easy task for the Panthers, but they still found a way to get to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And after their power play in the second, it was 11-1 in shots after that. So the momentum for the Panthers, even after that, stuck for them throughout the rest of that period.
Yeah, that second period was absolute dominance. UPL looked like prime Vasilevsky in that period, which happens sometimes, and you got to stay the course, and you can't really change your game. It wasn't resulting in goals in that period, but the chances were there. I believe it was 12 scoring chances in the second period. And I want to say it was 7 or 8 that were in high danger areas. I didn't have the stat right in front of me, but I know it was 12 scoring chances in the second period. That's ridiculous. Against average goaltending, you probably finished that game with 5, 6, maybe even 7 goals in that game. And UPL was fantastic. The future is bright in net for Buffalo for sure. He's a really, really good goalie. And then you've got Devin Levi in the pipeline as well, who Panther fans are very familiar with. But Buffalo definitely got the goaltending tonight, and his performance in net honestly really, really deserved at least a point. You definitely get the sense that Buffalo's going to walk away from that one a little disappointed they didn't even get a loser point in overtime, because his performance, he stood on his head. But the Panthers are going to run into that. It's the story of every season. Any team that makes a deep run in the playoffs, any team that gets to the playoffs, you have to get goaltending. And the Panthers are going to run into hot goalies in the playoffs. That's just the nature of the beast of the playoffs. You saw it where last season the Panthers were the team with hot goaltending, and you could see how far that carried them. And then you get to Vegas in the Stanley Cup final, and Aiden Hill was just on fire at that point. You have to get used to running into hot goalies and staying the course and not changing your game, even when the pucks aren't going in. Panthers dominated at 5-on-5, but the difference is the power play. You scored twice on the power play, one of them on a lucky bounce, one of them a 5-on-3. You can't pass up those opportunities when you're playing against a hot goaltender. Panthers capitalized on those, and that's the difference. It's a 1-goal game. You're going to see a lot of those in the postseason, and you're going to see a lot of hot goalies. It's about staying the course and not changing the game, not altering the game plan when you're having a tough time beating a guy who's really robbing you of goals on golden opportunities.
Yeah, 3-point night for Brandon Montour, getting that power play goal on the one-timer. GWG for Montour, 10 points now in his last 5 games. But also, the Florida Panthers also, kept the Sabres in this one. I mean, think about if the Panthers didn't commit a penalty, the amount of easy lanes to the net as well. I mean, the first one where Montour got the hook on the 4-on-3, that saved the goal, but they had to end. But here's the thing. The Panthers made the Sabres earn that one as well, even though they ended up scoring. So you might have saved the goal, but you made them earn it. Nikola collided knee on knee, I believe it was with Dylan Cousins as well. So if Cousins gets past him, that's a breakaway to the net as well. So not every penalty for the Panthers was a bad one. I mean, the Kulikov one, I mean, he lost the battle there and then ended up interfering with Rasmus Dahlin there as well. But also the fact that it wasn't a game full of untimely penalties. And also the Panthers, I mean, you got to give credit to them where it's due. Carter Verhaeghe misses the last 9 minutes of this one, and the last few minutes, Tage Thompson scores after it's 3-2. Gets after the Panthers lose the faceoff, the puck gets passed back to the point. I believe the puck was checked out of either Ekblad or Barkov's stick, and then Gus Forsling commits a little bit more to his right, and then Tage Thompson redirects it. But also the fact that it took the Buffalo Sabres so long to get UPL off the ice to get that extra attacker. The neutral zone was just nothing can get past the Panthers there in those final few minutes, and really that happened a lot throughout the night. Where the Panthers, you have two red jerseys up on someone right at the blue line as well to deny that or disrupt something, or it's slightly in the zone, it's a one and done, and you're there to battle it on the half wall too. So it was just that kind of game for the Panthers you love to see as far as gap control.
Yeah, I thought, like you said, a lot of the little things, the things that go unnoticed, gap control, the sequence at the end where the Panthers are kind of in a defensive shell a little bit. Buffalo's pressing. The Panthers are with Verhaeghe out temporarily. The Panthers are scrambling lines, so it's guys that haven't played the entire game with each other. So there's no chemistry, and you're just trying to survive, hold on to that 1-goal lead.
Yeah.
And it goes completely unnoticed and overstated, but the top line put together at the end there was Barkov, Reinhart, Tkachuk, your three best. And they kept the puck in the Buffalo zone for just about a minute and would not let Buffalo get their goalie out, which you don't score the empty netter to win the game, but that sequence there wins you the game because the best defense is puck possession and a good offense. And then you touched on the penalty situation. That before we move on to the next segment, I want to highlight that real quick. The Panthers have been undisciplined at times in the past. It's the nature of the way they play. Super physical, super fast. Sometimes you take a stupid penalty when emotions get high. But the quality of the penalties the Panthers took tonight was really, really, they took smart penalties. And
I'd say so.
Saving goals, saving odd man rushes. If you're going to take a penalty, you'd like to take it in those situations. And it's almost like basketball. You don't allow the layup. You take a foul to prevent the layup, and you make them earn it at the free throw line. The Panthers took a couple of smart penalties, and you don't allow the breakaway, and you make them earn it on the power play. And I'm cool with those. I'm fine with those type of penalties.
Also forced an extra penalty for the Sabres. Nick Cousins on that punch from Greenway. So maybe a little bit of a dive.
The NHL's most punchable face. He got one.
He got one for sure. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more about our stars of the game and the moment when we thought this game was won or lost. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, and you shouldn't have to worry about when you buy last-minute tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time has the deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the best place to find last-minute tickets. Find exclusive flash deals for sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, hockey, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Game Time picks a seat for big-time savings. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Also, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. And that's $150 if your first bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, February 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday, a Winans Wednesday edition of the show, where the Florida Panthers are coming off a 3-2 regulation win over the Buffalo Sabres at home and now have won the season series now against Buffalo. And for the Panthers in this one, 3 stars of the night for the Cats. I mean, Brandon Montour, you got to give him the first one on this one. 3 points on the night. Beautifully executed give and go with Nick Cousins and then Sam Bennett there. The assist on the power play and then the game-winning goal to give the Panthers a 3-1 lead at the time as well, which which I'll get a little bit more on the power play in a little bit. Second star of the game, Matthew Tkachuk, 2 points on the night. It's funny because even though he's hot, even though he is averaging over a point per game, even in these last 13, where the Panthers have given up 2 goals or less, where they're 12-2-0, Connor McDavid and Nikita Kucherov have caught up, even though Matthew Tkachuk has played one less game due to injury. But still, incredible company for him to be in. And Sergei Bobrovsky, it's crazy because I was thinking the whole game, okay, the only goals the Panthers gave up were on the power play last game. And then going into this one, the majority of this one, it was only on the power play. And of course, Tage Thompson scores. But still, what Bobrovsky is doing at even strength has to be a topic of conversation as well, just about positionally sound, his vision through traffic as well. He's my 3rd star of this one. How about your 3 stars, Jacob?
Yeah, my 3 stars. My 3rd star is going to be Matthew Tkachuk. I think he did his work tonight. 2 points again. Did everything you expect of him, and it almost flies under the radar because tonight's game he didn't really jump off the page at anyone with the eye test, but the stats are there. His contribution is there, and he had a really solid defensive game. I guess I should have started with honorable mentions, but I'll give a couple of honorable mentions. One of them is going to go to Evan Rodriguez. I think he had a really solid game, had some great scoring chances. Didn't finish them, but he had 2 really good rushes of his own and also set up Ekblad for probably the best chance of the night that didn't go in. Evan Rodriguez was super noticeable tonight. Sergei Bobrovsky gets an honorable mention for me. My 2nd star is not a Panther, unfortunately. It's UPL. He was unbelievable, and it's rare that I do that where I give one of my 3 stars to the opposing team because this is Locked On Panthers. But I have to give him some credit tonight. He was unbelievable. And then my 1st star is Brandon Montour. He's cooking right now, absolutely on fire offensively, and he hasn't really given up the defense to do it. His defense has been rock solid lately, and the points are now starting to come. The power play's humming, and we're starting to see him get back into the form that he was in last year, at least offensively. The defense has been there since he started playing this season, but the offense is now coming around. Averaging 2 points a game as a defenseman over the last few, that's pretty nuts. That's the league company that he's in. So tonight was possibly his best, definitely a top 3 game for him on the season.
Yeah, and you think about 12 points in his first 38. It was always going to take him a little bit to get back to form. It's crazy because you look at Erod. That's why plus minus isn't the be all end all, because it says -1, but it really doesn't say his impact on the night. Honorable mention, I also want to mention Aaron Ekblad and Gustav Forsling on how well they defended the top line for the Buffalo Sabres as well, about not giving them a lot of space on the night as well. So with that, my moment when I thought this game was won or lost, part of me was thinking before the Montour power play goal, the part where even though the Panthers didn't score on the power play in the second period, that I mentioned earlier, the 11-1 shot on goal differential, because even though sometimes you don't score on the power play, sometimes that could create momentum as far as puck possession and continuing to be confident in your battles as well, which the Panthers were a good amount of the time they were great when it came to battling for those loose pucks as well. But my moment when I thought this game was won or lost, the 5-on-3, the moment that the 5-on-3 was happening, I said, and I even tweeted saying, if they score here, this is gonna be my moment where Benson trips Mikkola after a little bit of a battle, which you can maybe understand why Don Granato was a little bit pissed there on the unsportsmanlike conduct. Maybe he thought that Brandon Montour interfered Benson there. And also, gotta mention, the Panthers were really pissing off the opposition there. Scuffle at the end of the game. Mikkola was getting in the face. Gus Forsling lays out a big hit on Tage Thompson as well. That creates something after the whistles. So they're getting in their opposition's heads. But my moment is still the 5-on-3 when the Panthers went on and Benson tripped Mikkola. You knew that was the turning point for the Panthers to eventually get this win. How about your moment?
Yeah, there's a couple that I could say. one of them is definitely that 5-on-3. Not even when Brandon Montour scores, but it was kind of, I was kind of certain they would score on that the second they announced the second penalty there. 2 minutes of 5-on-3 time with that kind of firepower on the ice, it'd be hard not to score. So as soon as they announced that, I was pretty certain, we're going to score, put this game away. That's the insurance goal. So that could be one. Another one that I considered would be when Nick Cousins gets punched in the face and it starts the entire scuffle there. It gets heated and nasty and the physicality picked up. I was extremely confident right after that happened that this is the Panthers game and they're not going to lose, because Buffalo, if they want any chance to beat Florida in a game like this, it's best to stay out of that kind of stuff, because that's what the Panthers thrive on. So when you turn it into that kind of game, you're in some big trouble when you're playing against this Panthers team. So I didn't think that Buffalo even had an ounce of a chance after that happened. Because again, that was kind of the igniter. It jumps the Panthers into the game. Everyone's active, everyone's physical. Buffalo really can't hang when the Panthers are playing that way. But I'd be lying to you if I said that I didn't have some doubts. So I'll, in complete honesty, I'll say the moment the game was won for me is when the Panthers top line, Barkov, Reinhart, Tkachuk, pinned Buffalo in their own zone in the final minute, and they couldn't get their goalie out. That was my true moment when the game is won. If you pin them down there, they can't pull a goalie. You're limiting their chance to set up. That's when the Panthers really put this game away. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, and then you have a face-off in the neutral zone as well, which forced UPL to go back there. So, and then by the time you have full possession there, it's 30 seconds left, and you can't really do anything outside of that. So, just great late game situation once again of how the Florida Panthers handle these close games, which they just continue. And by the way, 14-5-0 when the opposition scores first. So when they get down early, they still at least keep it close, even though it says under 500. But if you're under 500 by 1 when your opposition scores first, you're in good hands. I would say so. But we're going to transition to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more about just how the Panthers a different script that came with this game, and just continuing the themes of the Panthers and the stretch. Also, we are going to provide an injury update on Carter Verhaeghe. We are going to discuss this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has over 120 parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn into your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guarantee available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now you can find it on the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Excuse me. Back on this Wednesday, February 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. So, injury update for the Florida Panthers. As we said, Carter Verhaeghe missed the last 9 minutes of the game, took a puck into the face, but Paul Maurice said that he is good. So, no harm, no foul on that one. And the fact that as we head down the stretch. And we saw this was as far as the management of Sam Reinhart not practicing on Monday, being a little bit precautious about Kevin Stenlund's illness, and then Matthew Tkachuk's uh, injury as well. Panthers still found a way to win the previous one. And then this one, Panthers come out of this one unscathed as far as the injury front as well. But then you think about, once again for the Panthers, Sam Reinhart goes another game without scoring a goal, which, again, like I mentioned yesterday, we would be all up in arms if the Panthers were not winning and Sam Reinhart was not getting the goals on the board. But also, this stretch is, I mentioned it earlier, the Buffalo Sabres were on their longest winning streak of the season at 3 coming into this one. Yeah, they're double-digit points out of the wild card. So this is where you're still trying to make that late push and maybe convince your general manager, please, maybe bring us something that we could still prove. And, this is seen as a little bit of a disappointing season in Western New York after they missed out on the playoffs by 1 point. So, and again, like I mentioned, getting into the heads of the opponent. Matthew Tkachuk spoke about it, how the opposition wants to make it chippy, but it fits in with their style of play. And it just goes to show the completeness of this team, the unity, how they're in for one another as well, but also just the fact that guys pick each other up night in and night out. And it's just, you couldn't ask for anything better as far as different guys picking one another up.
Yeah, it's kind of become the culture and the identity of this team. And as South Florida sports fans, we're all about culture. And I think the Panthers now have built their own. It's a family environment. If one player, it doesn't matter how important the player is, it could be the last guy in the lineup. It could be Barkov. If any player is messed with or cheap shotted or targeted in any way, the entire team is after the opposition to make them pay for it. And you really do need that. In a sport that's getting increasingly fast, increasingly skill based, the Panthers have kind of found a unique way to have all of that speed and skill and high end talent, while also keeping some of that grit and toughness and old school hockey. Guys aren't afraid to throw the body. Guys aren't afraid to take a hit to make a play. Guys aren't afraid to fight when necessary. If it's going to get chippy after the whistles, the Panthers are going to be all over that. Protecting your goaltender. There's a lot of things that this Panthers team takes really seriously that are key to winning, that a lot of other teams just have a hard time competing with, because some of these elements are sort of on their way out of the game, or teams just aren't constructed to do that as much anymore. And the Panthers have found a really interesting way of matching that, and while also keeping the toughness and that element of nasty in the game, in their team game. And it really starts with a guy like Matthew Tkachuk. The identity of the team changed the second he got here. They call him a unicorn because he has that nasty, physical, irritant style, while also being one of the most elitely talented, world-class skill players. You surround him with guys like Bennett, guys like Cousins. It's contagious. You even see Barkov setting new career highs in hits and penalty minutes. Not that he's playing on the edge necessarily, but we used to never even see him throw the body at all. Yeah. And now he's getting in on the forechecks and making his presence felt. The other night in Carolina, I was shocked. He threw Dmitry Orlov like 10 feet across the ice. I'm like, this can't be Captain Sasha Barkov throwing the body on the forecheck.
Hold on. Captain Goon.
Captain Goon, that's correct. It's fun to watch right now. The Panthers have really hit their stride, and it's a new team identity. So with that, there is obviously the Panthers play so fast, so physical. Coming down the stretch, these last 20-some games, you really hope they can come out of that healthy. You don't want to have any injuries going into the playoffs. They don't have necessarily the most depth until we see what happens at the trade deadline. I'm sure reinforcements will be coming. We're certainly going to be buyers, but you hope for health going into the playoffs, because this team is it could be really special what this team can do if they get a healthy playoff run, because we saw what they almost did last year, completely beaten up and broken and almost stitched together by playoff time. There's no question of toughness on this team, and I think some of those minor things like Verhaeghe taking a puck to the mouth, or Tkachuk having a minor upper body injury. Right now, you give them that day off. You give them a couple days off. You give them a maintenance day. Let them miss a game. You can't question these guys' toughness. It's just make sure they're well maintained going into the playoffs, because the way they play, it takes a toll. And you want them healthy, because the way they're playing right now, this wins playoff games, this wins playoff series, and this wins Stanley Cups.
Yep, the low scoring affairs, 14 games where it's 2 goals or less. And speaking of Tkachuk and the identity change, when Matthew Tkachuk, never forget when Sam Reinhart during media day said he pisses you off because he's good as well. But also Matthew Tkachuk said after the game, he said, quote, "We do have a lot of really good offensive players in here, but at the end of the day, defense wins. We're all about we're also committed to that, especially after last year, kind of learning that style of play it over and over. It's in our brains now. That's how we play, and the buy-in from this group is at an all-time high. We're having a lot of fun coming and working each game, and we're having so much fun coming to the rink every other day," close quote. And speaking of coming to the rink every other day, the Panthers will be back at practice tomorrow, Wednesday, at War Memorial at noon. So we will see more on if we will see some of those maintenance days, as you know, to keep fresh for when the Florida Panthers do welcome in the Montreal Canadiens for the last of this 3-game homestand. So
do you think Verhaeghe gets a maintenance day, or do you think he practices rocking a fishbowl? Because we saw that the fishbowl gave Barkov some superpowers. So I mean, I don't know. Just putting that out there.
Barkov gets superpowers with it. We all saw Connor Bedard in the World Junior. What happened with the fishbowl? I mean, it could bring wonders. You never know. So we'll see there as well. So, but Jacob, I want to say thank you once again for joining me on another edition of Winans Wednesday here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, covering another win for these Cats here, 3-2 over Buffalo and winning the season series. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8, and I'll see some of you Panther fans in a couple weeks at the game against Calgary. Finally heading back to the arena. Please don't kill me. I know I'm bad luck, but the Panthers are on a roll right now. I gotta see my first win of the year. So,
yeah, I think I'm still at only one overtime loss in the games that I've attended this season. So hopefully you bring some good juju in a few weeks. And I will see you next week for when we recap the road game against the New Jersey Devils. So I will see you next week, my friend.
That should be a good one. Looking forward to it.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.